If you change your mind, you change your life, just change your mind. The Lord loves you. He's standing with his arms wide open for you. Oh, be encouraged, cause this day's for you. Don't you let this opportunity pass by you. Change your mind.
Hello, welcome. My name is Kenneth Page, and I'm here with Adulting 101.org. I'd like to welcome you to part 3 of our Perspectives of Money series. In this series, we really want to challenge the way that you look at money, the way that you think about money, the way that you plan to use money. In today's lesson called Budgeting for Your Lifestyle, we really dig into the concept of budgeting as it relates to your lifestyle, and we also leave you with some investing tips. Now, this is part 3. So if you haven't seen part 1 and part 2, part 1, financial picture, and part 2, career and purpose, I highly encourage you to stop this right now and go check those out as well. Now, in today, learning with us, we have Kalendra, a senior college student, as well as Jalen, Megan, and Tyler, who all operate as teachers. And of course, we have special guest, William Jeter, who operates as a financial planner. So grab some pen, paper, notes, phone, tablet, whatever you use, and so you can take some notes so we can do some good learning.
Where are you thinking about going to law school, Kalendra?
So that is undecided. If I'm going to stay in South Carolina, I'll probably end up going to USC.
I gotcha.
But I've also looked at a lot of schools in Texas, and even a couple in Washington, D.C. My big thing is where am I going to live and where am I going to work to establish to live in law school?
So I assume D.C. would be a political career. What's the thought around Texas?
A lot of teachers and professors that I have, we either went to Texas or Florida. So
I gotcha.
education-wise, I'm still looking, but I like the area. And I know that if you want to practice law, you should stay where you want to practice law. So as far as the South, like South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, wouldn't really get too much further than that. And if I go up to Texas, I kind of feel like I have access to all of the South.
I gotcha. Yeah. And it's warm, and there's no state income tax.
No, actually,
that's why they were in Texas and Florida. Don't let them fool you on that.
I was about to
Who
say,
ain't got no state income tax?
Texas and Florida.
Texas. I actually, through my old job, I spoke to a lot of people that, like a few people from Virginia and a couple people from North Carolina that moved to Texas. And they talk about just their opportunities in general as far as credit and all. So I think it's a cool state.
No. And so you were talking about Texas and the no state tax. I think so. All of us right now live in the Carolinas, North and South Carolina, and the cost of living here is substantially different than other places. And then even when you look at like the lifestyles, the things that Southerners enjoy doing, I feel like, the area, you reside in plays a lot into your views on money and how that plays a part into it.
I lived in Atlanta for a year, and I'm in Columbia now, and I think probably 35-40% more expensive. Atlanta.
Gosh, if you made $100,000 a year, you'd be rich in the Carolinas. But if you lived in like California, like LA or something, that's nothing there. My neighbor was talking about, he was saying like the neighborhood we grew up in, the houses are like, it's like a middle class neighborhood. The houses are about $150,000-$200,000. He was saying that this house in LA is about a $2.5 million house. And that's just absolutely blows my mind. Like, do y'all ever have any like thoughts? Have y'all ever even thought of like living somewhere else? And then in that thought, did you ever consider like the cost of living with that?
So for the past couple summers, well, before the pandemic, I spent some time in Ithaca, New York, working for a not-for-profit organization called Telluride Association. And I would teach Black and brown students, like high schoolers, about like social justice, and I would do like a whole social justice course with them in partnership with like professors that, you know, come for the summer and work for the school. But we stayed on the campus of Cornell University. And I was blessed in that opportunity to have a place to stay on the campus, and like we got food and everything at the house. But like the cost of living in New York, because, you know, we went around the city and we saw like up north, or I spent some of my friends from college, one of my friends from college lives in Detroit, so I would visit her. I just couldn't imagine living up there. You know, there are certain luxuries that I like to say luxuries in the South that we get just with the cost of living. And we know that, you know, when we go to this certain store, this is about how much we're going to spend. This is how it affects our budget, versus if we're shopping and we're traveling, we are going somewhere else. It completely changes like how it's going to affect our budget because the cost of living is so different. So, and thinking about just where I want to be long term, I love North Carolina, but I do want to venture out to other cities. But one of the things that makes me nervous is like finding a job that's going to be financially stable for the cost of living where I'm at. And like, so in finding that level of comfortability, right, that we were talking about, like having enough in these areas, like that is something that, like, when I'm thinking about, okay, moving out of North Carolina where I was born and raised, going to school in South Carolina, like moving away from these places, like it's something like you really have to consider, you really have to think about, because it's going to change like how you budget, and it may end up changing some of your financial habits as well.
And I'd say too, along with that, Tyler, I think what you're doing in your actual career path makes a difference too in those decisions, because for me as a teacher, I can pretty much go anywhere and find something. My brother, he has his bachelor's degree in landscape architecture. He's into like CAD and like graphic design and things like that. If he was to go to more metropolitan areas, he's going to find more opportunity to afford him to live that purpose out and to have a certain kind of lifestyle. And there's some other areas that's not going to lend itself to that. So I also think in that conversation, like what you're actually doing and what career path you're actually in plays a big factor in that decision.
Oh, yeah. Because all of those things are still going to affect us both financially and quality of life. And that's a whole nother caveat to consider. You know, this is what I want to do with my life, but where is the place to do this at? Because you can't do everything everywhere. If I'm a snow shoveler and I'm really passionate about that, I'm not going to do well in the South. You know, it don't snow. So it's like things along those lines. Now, let's see. I want to shift gears a little bit because we've talked a lot about, so we've floated around different aspects of money, different ways of earning, not different ways of earning money, but, you know, how the way we choose to earn money affects our life. You know, we talked about quality of life and money and different components about that, you know, different like, you know, lifestyle choices, the way that, you know, the home that we're brought up in, the environment that we're raised in, how that shapes our, you know, perspective on money. What I want to ask now is, and I think Jeter can help us a lot out with this, with being in financial planning. We've heard the word in this conversation, budget, a couple of times. And, you know, budgeting is super important. I think, you know, I definitely budget. I think it's something that we all have to do. But a caveat to budgeting, and Jeter, I'd like you to break this down for us. Could you talk to us about what it means to actually budget for your lifestyle versus just the concept of just budgeting? Because I think we all say budgeting, but I think understanding budgeting for your lifestyle is more important than just setting a budget.
Yeah, so I think For one, what a budget is I actually, the definition I like best actually comes from Dave Ramsey, and that's just giving every dollar a home. I think that's a good, I think that's the best, simplest definition of a budget. So you've got a purpose for each and every dollar. And then budgeting for your lifestyle. So I personally don't budget. We just talked about it. I'm a financial advisor. You don't hear this very often. I don't budget. I set a savings rate, and I go from there. So I know as long as I'm saving X% of my income and I'm investing properly, I'm putting things in my Roth IRA that are for that. I'm putting this in the fund for the big bills down the road, rings, houses, those kind of things. I'm going to be fine. And I'm not, and I'm trying to set that savings rate at a level where I'm also not going to constrict my lifestyle to a point where I can't stick with it. So any plan, any financial plan that you have is only going to work if it's something that you can stick with. And so it can be extremely Spartan if that's your personality. It might have to be a little bit more lucrative if that's your personality. So when I think about budgeting for a lifestyle, I think about, what do I need to be able to stick with a plan? Because, saving something is a lot better than saving for a little while, a little bit more, and then breaking down, having this midlife crisis Kenneth is talking about, and then never getting back on the right path again after that. And so when I think about budgeting for a lifestyle, that's where it falls. It's what can I stick with on top of, is every dollar going to the right place, or am I optimizing? I think optimizing versus having enough is what I think of when budgeting for a lifestyle. I like to have enough rather than to optimize.
So it seems like you approach your budgeting from a saving standpoint or a future viewpoint, because if we're saving and investing, we're certainly planning for the future. Were you always like that?
So no, and that's a conversation that we had, and we talked about into being a financial planner. I've, learned some things, seen some rules of thumbs, whatever. And this may be the question that Kenneth was getting to. And so, like I mentioned earlier, being in a career field for about 10 years and being fortunate enough, being fortunate enough to be paid so that I have extra at the end of the month. I've come to realize what is enough for me. And I can also look forward with my financial planning background and say, all right, how much do I need to be able to keep that going indefinitely, to have that amount of time? And so, yeah, there are rules of thumb to think to. And yes, so I now, it was always about saving as much as I could, was my mindset about money. When I was in high school, it would be, all right, let me save as much as I can at this point in time, so I've got more for the future whenever XYZ comes up, versus now it's, let me balance this so that I'm doing enough so that I'm confident I'm going to be able to take care of this level of needs that I have, but also let me live out that level of needs at the moment.
Absolutely. What is the safe withdrawal rate? What does that mean?
Yeah. So that's a great question, and that's one of the things you pick up on. You can Google it, you'll figure it out. It's very simple, and I guess it was probably like the mid '90s. This research started, and basically it said average retirement is about 30 years, and retirement's a new concept, right? Like I think my grandma's generation was the first one to actually retire, on a regular basis in the United States. So those people came of age in that World War II timeframe were probably the first ones who legitimately retired here or most everywhere. And so this was a new thing in the mid 90s. And he looked out and he said, all right, what is, if I assume my money's growing in investments, and it's a reasonably conservative portfolio, reasonably conservative rate of return. And I look back at market history, what amount of money could I have pulled out every single year? And no matter whether I hit my retirement at the worst possible time, I have enough money to get through a 30-year retirement. So how much of that initial amount could I pull out every single year? So if I have $100,000 and the safe withdrawal rate is 10%, I could pull out $10,000 every single year. And so he looked at what was the worst possible time to retire and how much could you pull it out. There's been some new research on top of it recently. Most people say it's anywhere from 3.5% to about 6. And the initial research found 4.5% was about accurate. So when I think forward, I just say, us, our age, the advances in medicine, I'm probably going to live to about 100 would be my guess. And so if I retire at 70, and I can pull 4.5% a year out, and I know I need X amount. Let's pretend it's $100,000, which is substantially more than I spend. Right? Let's say I need $100,000 a year. Well, if I know that that's roughly 4%, 4.5%, I know I need about $2.5 million at that point in my life by the age of 70. In order to retire at that comfortable level. That's just the math of that. You multiply 100,000, dividing by 4% is the same thing as multiplying by 25. So 100,000 times 25, you get to $2.5 million. Now that's not going to be perfect, right? So, why not overshoot? Why not shoot for 3 million, 3.5 million, 4 million if you can? If you can do that within that happy lifestyle that we're talking about there, shoot for that 3.5, 4 million. And then you've got so much extra that you can use, or I assume we're going to get into this at some point anyway, you can give.
Yeah.
And so, is it okay if I keep going, Kenneth?
Yeah.
So, in thinking about charitable gifting, the way that I think about it today is I'm a person who values two of my primary interests and my financial motivations are stability and security. And so right now, I don't give as much as I'm sure I could, because those are primary motivations. And once I reach that level of stability and security, I do believe I'll go past it. And then I think I can give much, much more meaningful dollars. So let's say I need that 100,000. Instead of 2.5 million, I get $5 million accumulated. So I've got twice as much as I need. even if I don't give away twice, even if I don't give away just as much as I spend, what if I'm giving away $50,000 a year at that point in my life? Like, that has changed lives kind of money. And so looking back at these kind of charitable gifting philosophies, that there have been two that stuck with me, and they again came from this Charlie Munger guy, and he did some research into the Andrew Carnegies and the John D. Rockefellers and the literal, I think the name of Carnegie's biography is Titan, like these titans of industry who gave so much away at the end of their lives, and he studied them. And they looked for two things. One of them was they could build wealth much faster than the charities that they were giving the money to could. So if they waited to give away, they could give away a lot more dollars than the charities could have gotten use out of. So that's not the case for everyone. You know, that's the way Warren Buffett has done it. If you look at his giving pledge with the Gates Foundation, that's been his principle all along. But that's one that I'm following, not because I think I can grow it so much faster than these charities or what have you, but because of my sense of needs for stability and security. The other thing they do is look for places that need those dollars and can actually use those dollars to create the most good. And so again, I'll go back to the Gates Foundation. Like, we've had the cure for malaria for years and years and years, but it's still a disease that's around. So he's going around and he's vaccinating people in all these impoverished parts of the world. He's eradicating polio from the planet. We've been able to cure polio for 70 years. These aren't hard problems, but like, they go a long way. Polio destroys a life if you get it. You get paralyzed from it. And so, you know, easy solutions, small problems, they can go a long way. And, you know, a personal philosophy of mine, and we happen to have 3 teachers on the call, is I don't think anyone can make small dollars go further than a passionate teacher can. And so that's where I focus a lot of my philanthropy today, is I just seek out teachers who really enjoy teaching, and, you know, a little bit helps so much in that situation. So
to add to that, you know, the importance of teachers, you know, what you all do for, you know, it is so much more important than I think people actually give credence to. The way that you impact teachers, the way that teachers impact young people, like, you literally are in a position to change the thinking process, to change the mindset of someone else that might actually go off and turn around and do something amazing for the world. Like, you get a chance to impact them and steer them down a different direction in life. I know certainly for my past, there were teachers and coaches that fulfilled that for me, that literally set me on a new life's path. So teaching extremely important and extremely valuable. And I can tell from, you know, the way you all approach it, that it is extremely rewarding. And it kind of, Gina, as you were explaining that, I kind of got this picture in my head about this, you know, the way society has to work with each other. And what I mean by that is, if we're all looking at, okay, you have the people that might be passionate about changing the world, they're not going to necessarily always be in a capital position to finance their endeavors. Yet the people that, you know, went a different route and made a buttload of money, they have the resources that they can merge with this mission to accomplish something spectacular. And I dare to say, you know, for some people, the ability to generate revenue is a gift. It's a skill. It's a talent that you can put some people in a particular anywhere, and they know it's something innate in them. They're gifted to make money. And I think the majority of everyone that I've heard that makes a lot of money consequently talks about giving a lot of money. You know, there's a level of giving of the money going out. And I think, you know, we're all believers on this call. Personally, I think tithing is important. I think it's, you know, as you're growing and then going through life and developing your faith, understanding that relationship between tithing your money in the way that it comes back to you. And, you can't tithe without planning the rest of your money. So all of that certainly plays into that. I think we're wrapping up. We're getting to the end of it. The last things that we're going to do, I want to make sure, does anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns thus far as we're wrapping it up?
Who's the author of the book that y'all were mentioning?
Which one?
I think someone said that they were reading it.
Was it The Purpose Driven Life by Rick Warren?
Yes.
Rick Warren.
Mm-hmm.
That was my question.
And I just wanted to say too, thank you, Jeter, for having that passion, because I agree with what Kenneth was saying about not having the resources, but having the vision and that partnership being so important. And I think that it's phenomenal that you already kind of are tapping into that space, and we appreciate you.
I certainly appreciate y'all a lot, because as we got into, I don't think anybody works harder. I don't think anybody makes more of a social difference, and yet the gap in pay between what I make and what y'all make is insane.
Yeah. Any other last questions? All right, the last two things that I'd like us to do. One, I'd like everyone to make some closing comments. And then I'll ask you, I'm going to circle back and ask you how you felt about this conversation. So, Megan, we'll start with you. Closing comments, final thoughts.
I don't know. I appreciate having this conversation. I thank everybody for showing up and fully showing up. I think one of my takeaways from the conversation is just encouragement. I see fellow educators on the call, and that's inspiring to me. I think everyone's trying to kind of walk their purpose out in a unique way. And if you need anything, if I can do anything within my ability to do, I will always keep you uplifted. And thanks for inviting me to the conversation.
Thanks for joining. Your input was certainly beneficial. Tyler, final thoughts.
Thank you, Jeter. I appreciate your recognition or your awareness. Where with educators, I don't think that's something that a lot of people realize. So it is really reassuring and also rewarding in the same breath to hear that you and working with Kenneth on this platform are trying to bring more awareness to that. That makes me feel really good as an educator. And I just really appreciate the conversation. I think it's really important to have healthy dialogue about conversations that, we don't normally have every day, or people that they don't normally take a lot of value in understanding. So I appreciate having a healthy, positive, really informative dialogue. And it feels good, and it's very reaffirming to hear that people that are in similar professions as me, similar walks of life for me, or we have familial ties. It's good to have these conversations and just bring awareness. And I really like this. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Glendra, final thoughts.
So I'm very appreciative, KP, and also Jeter. I've been in a couple of conversations, and every single time I come, it adds something to my to-do list. So especially with today's conversation, just being financially aware of where I am and where I want to go and how I'm going to do that successfully. I appreciate these conversations because of that, because I'm first generation college student coming from a family that isn't super huge on higher education. So I have to go and find information for myself that, I use to make sure it benefits me and everyone else around me. So I'll definitely make sure that I send out the link because it needs to be heard.
Absolutely. Thank you. Jalen, final thoughts.
Let me first say, KP, Jeter, Y'all two the best. Sean, well, I'm sorry. We used to call him
You
Sean.
call me Sean.
Sean, I was talking to him a few weeks ago about like, getting into the financial thing. So it's very embracing to hear more information about it. Like I was saying earlier, I'm freshly getting into this kind of stuff, so I'm trying to grow my knowledge in all this financial gains and things like that. It's also good to hear from other educators too, because I believe educators go through the toughest time when it comes to finances because we don't do it for the money, we do it for the kids, but at the same time, we have bills and we're not getting what we really needed, and we're the ones who have to sacrifice the most. Honestly, I think in any profession, teachers are the ones who sacrifice the most. So it's good to have other educators within this group that we all can relate. So thanks to both of y'all, honestly.
Awesome, thank you. Jeter, I want you to give us some final comments, but I want you to answer a quick question before that. Investing basics. We want to get investing. What's the quickest way to start?
Yeah, so I think something that isn't always said in my profession is if particularly if you're young when you get started, you don't need to do better than average in investing to outperform. The average is really, really good. So things like low cost, things that you understand, and things that are in the right place tax-wise for you, if you combine that with good habits over time, I think you're going to find that you're going to reach your goals. And anyone on this, like I said, I'm going to get everyone's information on this call, and any sort of questions, anytime you see the financial field's full of jargon. And so anytime you see some, please let me know. But again, low cost, diversified, Roth. As a young person, Roth IRA, that means you never have to pay taxes on it again. I think if you do those three things, you're gonna be all right if you have good financial habits.
So the three things were, don't shoot the moon. We don't need to take off in the stock market day one. So number one, recognizing that an average return is a good return. Number two, just overall good financial and spending habits and saving habits. And then number three, get that Roth IRA going.
That's right.
And the difference between a Roth IRA and a regular IRA is taxation, meaning Roth IRA, we pay taxes on the front end, and a regular IRA, you're paid the taxes when you deduct the money.
You can think about you're saving a few percent more now, but let's fast forward it way down the road, and everybody's at that 70 years old point, and they're looking to retire, and they've got $1 million in that IRA. If it's a Roth IRA, they've got $1 million. If it's a regular IRA, they got to pull out and pay taxes on that. We're not in Texas or Florida like Glinda might be. Then you're probably cutting that down by 29% in today's tax code. So you got $710,000. Go ahead and pay the extra few percent now. It'd be worth it.
And I guess it's safe to say our government isn't going to lower taxes.
Unlikely to go down substantially.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And quick question. Any investing questions for Jeter real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. Or any sort of financial questions that are on your mind. So something that you don't understand or something that feels like a buzzword or anything along those lines.
So I have a question, Jeter. I've heard that just with everything changing in our economy and everything, that you needed to I hope I'm using it the right way. You need to liquidize or liquefy some of your assets and start investing in it's the cryptocurrencies, but investing in gold, because they say the US dollar is not based off anything, what would you say like to things like that? And then also just considering too, like a recession. So like, you know, with the dollar possibly inflating, or if the dollar does inflate, like what would you say to investing in that way, like in like metals and coins and stuff like that, if you have done that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. It's one that's coming up a lot right now, and it's gonna be to each individual's preference. But I would think of investing for something like inflation more from a buying insurance type perspective than a trying to make my portfolio grow type perspective. So that there's going to be a balance in it. I think everyone here wants their portfolio invested in things that are primarily growth, which are for the most part going to be stocks. But if you feel strongly that there's going to be inflation, and I think the ingredients for inflation are stronger than they've been in a long time, then you want to put a little bit more in these things that do well in times of inflation. Things like gold has traditionally done reasonably well. Real estate, cryptocurrency is new to the game. We haven't had it in an inflationary period, at least not in the United States. Some other things that you can get that are relatively inexpensive, or there are countries that are used to inflation, right? You know, if you could invest in Brazil or Turkey or India, these places have had inflation. And so I wouldn't say that they're going to react any different than U.S. stocks at the time that inflation comes. But I do believe that, you know, in a period of enhanced inflation, they've got a better checklist than anyone managing a U.S. company does right now for what to do during times of inflation, because they've been there before. And so I guess in summary, inflation, we've seen 4 what I would call major inflationary periods, and since we've got good market data on it. So once every roughly 27 years is what it comes around. So those are the probabilities that we've been looking at. And I would probably slightly overweight that once every 27-year probability in my portfolio if I'm hearing about it and thinking about it and wanting that peace of mind.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, y'all. Guys, thank you so much. Thank you so much for this. I learned more from sitting here. The goal is you all communicated that it was beneficial and impactful for you all. The goal is so that when this video is released for the viewers to watch it, and I wanted to challenge the way they see money, challenge the way they handle money. I want them to consider, you know, purpose and fulfillment and happiness when it comes to, you know, setting their career path. I want them to walk away understanding the importance of long-term thinking and long-term financial planning with, you know, with a realistic view of it, because it's a shame to, you know, incur a bunch of stress for financial reasons for no reason at all. You're stressing yourself out for something that you don't need to be stressed about. So you all certainly contributed so much to that. Thank you again so much.
Wow, what an amazing conversation and lesson that we just finished. I learned something out of this, so I know you at home had to learn something out of it too. In fact, I'd like you to take a moment to reflect on the things that we talked about, remember certain things from the video, go back over your notes to see what it is that you can actually pull out and apply to your life. Because the goal of this is to provide you with the information that you need so that you can apply it and use it in your life to have a better tomorrow than you have today. So again, you know, we want some reflection, some application, and then also share this video. You know, if you learned something out of it, if it was beneficial to you, please share it so other people can learn and grow as well. And don't forget to hit subscribe so that you can stay up to date as we release more and more lessons. Now, this is part 3, so if you haven't seen part 1 and part 2, make sure you go back and check those out. Financial picture, as well as career and purpose. Great lessons, great conversations, so you're totally going to want to see those as well. Now, in the credits of this, you're going to see the contact information for Tyler, Megan, and Jeter. So please reach out to them if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. They'd love to chat with you. And here at Adulting 101 org, we would love to talk to you as well. You'll see our contact information in the credits too. Now, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Adulting 101 org, and use that hashtag #DoAdulting when you chat with us. We can't wait to hear from you. And lastly, if you agree, if you support the mission of Adulting 101 org to provide the necessary information to young people so that they can better navigate their lives, please consider donating to us, sow into us so that we can better advance our mission. You can find us on Cash App, $DoAdulting, or you can go to the website, doadulting.org, and you'll see different ways to give. But again, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll catch you next time. Peace.